on on the full moon of May, and I'm usually a bit energized and giddy around the full moons, but this has been a kind of a lethargic and sort of heavy energy one for me personally, and I'm kind of perking up here, so I am looking forward to some channeling, and it's good to see you, Jochen. And I know it's a Thursday, so who knows how many will be, but if it's just you, then I hope all is well is in Cologne, and of course shoot whatever questions you have, and we also have a few questions coming in from our confidants and supporters. So thank you to Laurie, Tony, Carla, and Mandy who support me over and coffee. And also thank you for your questions. And thank you to Pat, Sarah, and Eileen who have given generous contributions this month. And Essen is here. It's so good to see you. And also, yeah, if thank you to all of you for your spiritual, your moral support, your participation, and your sharing in this process and journey and working with yourself in your slice of the great multiverse. It's a joy to be with you, and it's meant a lot on the path. So with that, I think the Quanta are tuning in because they are of course the universal time frame, and going through a lot here. It's lovely to tap into the Holy Ghost, this fundamental energy, and I think what they want to teach us about today is also something about the structure of the multiverse. So this 12-dimensional scale, because this seems to be a pattern that repeats itself throughout a lot of conscious species. That our highest alignments is actually operating in some kind of dodecaphonic scale of psychological or archetypal proportions. With that, I'll have a sip of mate. Thank you so much for being here, guys, and enjoy the evening. Ooh. 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 Mm. Toning is a thing to attune to. Try to tempt these tones from deep within. There is a calling forward, a voice that says, "Dare I?" This temptation in its possible and positive sense, this opportunity, this calling forward, this opening that always exists as long as your heart beats, as long as you're alive. We connect to this opening this day, and this is the space that we manifest through. This is the space that manifests all existence. And we, the 12-dimensional Quanta, the Holy Ghost, the founders, the union of the everything as it disperses itself through the all, we greet you with the deepest love this evening. And we have simply entitled this transmission Full Moon Fractals, because this is a very helpful way of understanding energy. We are using an energy funnel that is tied to the physical forces of the planet. This means that the configuration of solar energy as it reflects off the full lunar disk triggers certain fundamental responses in your physicality, in the human soul, and in the planetary soul. And these alignments are powerful for you to connect to deeper layers of truth, vibrational reality, the sense of your heartbeat and your energy, your inner nature in this world. But it is a fractal because every moon is different. And so, even though the fundamental pattern is different, it reiterates itself. Well, it reiterates itself differently on a pattern that is similar or identical. So you find that it is within these universal templates that you reveal your own specificities, configurations, most deeply and most truly. We could say that gazing into your reflection in a still pond on a moonlit night where the moon is full and the wind is still, this will give you a more clear idea of who you really are than any other idea. And so moved by this universal light and feeling how this moon is another punctuation of the rhythm and flow of energy, while you are also moving along great solar winds at the moment and being lifted up into new frequencies. Here we connect and join together again in this fractal, this holy pattern that is aligned and harmonized allows for our individual unfolding and our co-creation of reality, of beauty, magic, and love this evening. So thank you to all who are here with us in this time frame, who are here with us in the wider time frame of attention and receptivity, frequency, and vibration tuned into this creation. And blessings to all human beings who hold also the backdrop and the framework for this gathering, even though their awareness does not see it. They feel its reverberations throughout the oversoul as they feel so many other positive gatherings, so many other connections that you are making to the light within and the light without. So let us join hands in this circle of light. Let us join voices and let us join a shared rhythm of life. With love, we, the Quanta, we look forward to answering your questions. Um, I think we should, those are excellent questions, both Jochen and Essen, and so good to be with you guys. Um, because Jochen asked first, how can we connect and work with your energy? And then Essen asks, I feel like my ego is dying. Is it possible to fast track this painful process? And my sense of it is that these two questions go very well together. So let's see how they answer that. And much love to you guys. Yes. And the reason that we guided our friend here to put these two questions together is that these are two pillars that support the roof that holds up existence. And so if you are to think of these ideas of how the divine is experienced, then the unity of it all is the dome or the roof. It's this open, vast space. And that is in many ways an abyss to live in. It is an open void that holds no ground for you. And so what happens in the open void, as you know from your encounters with space, is that there is no pressure to compose the body, the reality, the fixated, manifested person. And so it drifts apart. It simply comes apart by itself and disintegrates. And this is the process that you are feeling, dear Essen, that you are coming apart and disintegrating into the great void. And here you must trust that there are two pillars holding you up. And these two pillars, you can think of them in many, many different ways because they are at their deepest level physical. They reside in your body. You could think of one as the vertical axis that always carries you, and you could think of the one as the horizontal axis that always holds you up. So whenever you are dying, know that there is a cross for you to fall back on. Or you can think of these as two flows and rivers of energy, the Ida or the Pingala. And here, notice that these are two forces, one that is opening you up and one that is putting you together, one that is putting breath into you and one that is decompressing you from the tension it builds in your body. So these are the two streams that you can cleanse yourself and replenish yourself in. Or there is this universal energy, not the void of the all, but the specific manifestation, the moment as it is there for you and holds you up. And we are she, and she has many names depending on what language you use to praise the divine and talk about its qualities. But it is us, the Quanta, the holy energy that is everywhere. And we are always, always with you. And as you dissolve into a new layer of rebirth and revitalization. And so the process that you are being moved into is a process where our energy will permeate your being in a way where you will feel the polarities of your individual cells shift. And this will be a type of dying off of your energy body as it has come to pass, and then a renewal and a beginning of this new rebirth. But the place where this takes place is within the second pillar, and the second pillar is the one that is you. It is the sun, it is man, it is the incarnated human being as it stands in its individual glory, but representing and embodying, containing within it the totality of the all. And within that, you have the knowledge and the process of all your forebearers. And know that you are not doing this alone, but you are doing it on behalf of a humankind that continues within you and runs forward within you. So the process you are undergoing is one that you choose to surrender to. And this is the only choice you make. You make the choice of the polarity of trust, the polarity that there will be love, the polarity that energy as it moves through you will be charged, purified. It will be serene, it will extend itself to the world. And so even though you may find that pieces of you are dying off, then this energy that is rebirthing you, you select it every moment by committing to it, by choosing it. And you are doing this at a very, very rapid pace. And grueling as it feels, cumbersome as it feels, slow as it feels, know that these realities are taking place in time cycles and time frames that are of a different composition and intensity than the ones you are used to. And you are keeping up very rapidly with these high oscillations. So we thank you for that. And we also praise your diligence and dedication as a student. And this we extend to Jochen as well, thereby also answering this twin question. Because notice that it is all these techniques, patterns, traditions that are already available to you. And in your case, it manifests much as the skill of the magician. That is, you may find that your approach to spirituality is more one of applied knowledge, moving through certain systems to map out certain results, rather than it is one of total surrender. And with that, we sense that you may do well in invoking your guides and angels, calling them forward and into your space, into a magic circle that you have created in your living space. And we sense that this circle, what we are showing our friend here is he is seeing it, he knows it from a cartoon that he sense you may also know, the Cigars of Pharaoh, these classic Tintin cartoons by Hergé, the Belgian comic book writer. But in that particular cartoon, there is a symbol of a circle with a type of squiggly line and a symbol through it. And there is a type of activation symbol within this symbol that you can use. And if you draw this in your living room or in salt, for instance, or perhaps using a different type of medium such as sand, you will find that you can hold and move with powerful, interesting energies in there. Also using this to dance and funnel things into your life and living room. So different approaches to universal energy. We thank you, we love you, we bless you, and we are with you. And I'm Marcus here and waving hi. Good to see you too. Yes, and yes, shoot with whatever questions you have, guys, and we have some from our viewers and patrons here. So so we're going into the Aurora Borealis, and I hope that was special where you lived, and it's yes, and so Carla asks, uh, she says a lot of sweet things in the beginning. Wonderful channeling, thank you, and we send our love to dear Carla. And then she says, I know the aurora borealis is old hat to you living in Denmark. It is usually a faint novelty here in the lower 48 states of the US. On the night of May 10th and early morning of May 11th, I went to the northwest tip of the US in Washington State on the Salish Sea to view it. It was the strongest show in years. The aurora was beautiful, but it was auroral corona that just blew me away. It felt like being in a domed cathedral with an eye at the top and rays streaming downward. The colors were stunning through the cameras. It was like being bathed in godlight. It was a joyous event to everyone we met. That alone had to raise our vibrations. Was that an energy upgrade that is permanent for Earth? Is the Aurora Corona a different energy than the Aurora Borealis? Did you get more energy standing in it than just ignoring it and going off to bed? Thank you and much love. And such a beautiful question. And I'm also very happy to get to channel something on this topic because it really was a very powerful initiation for all of us. And thank you for the very beautiful description. Yes, to answer things in the reverse, such as we often enjoy doing, seeing that time flows in at least two directions, and actually several more. But that is to say that yes, sure, certainly, you can rest assured that whatever you experience, you receive more of it if you actually experience it than if you have it as a only as an imprint that comes to you because you are part of a human collective. So to explain that in terms that have nothing to do with, say, spiritual experience, but maybe something with spiritual awakening of humanity. But if you consider the event of September 11th, 2001 of your time, you may clearly sense that if you were watching television and keeping up with events, you got a stronger impulse of the global shock within the human collective awareness at that point. And it really was a type of awakening to what it feels like to have a global mass reaction as humanity as a whole. And you're getting more and more used to that. So consider events such as Fukushima, for instance, or other mass events that trigger a type of global response in the oversoul. And so that is to say that you will still receive these changes in the oversoul. So you would still register if you're living in 2002 that something has happened. But if you were living in a mountaintop somewhere completely cut off from the stream of information, you wouldn't be aware of it and you wouldn't receive it directly. So from those more profane matters, then let's go into this holy sacred life you experienced and this light that went through you. Because you personally, Carla, you may sense that you have been building all of your life to this moment. And if you look at the many, many, many different types of happenstances, accommodations of reality, of fated events, which have to come about for you to be there at that moment, at that particular point, with those people, feeling yourself under the dome of the divine light as it reveals other textures and deeper layers of reality. And it was known, of course, by both the northern and southern peoples of your planet that these lights contained the voices of the ancestors and would allow you to see beyond into the invisible world and feel and see their language's living movement. So you have been drawn to this experience your entire life, feeling that these invisible worlds were drawing you, calling you, revealing themselves to you, guiding you. And so here they finally brought you into their cathedral. And this is a discovery that you are making. You who have been on this path of spiritual discovery, you are making it in these days that your awakening is personal. And this means that it also takes a shape of revelation that is synchronistic in the way that it matches up your personal energy preferences with the way reality reveals itself to you. And so you, Carla, you have always sought the great worship of nature. And you may know that the region you live in is famous also in these northern parts of the planet for having a very special emerald light. And you are connected to that green deep light. It is really what feeds your soul because it is the vibrancy and color of your soul. And so that was mapped out in your soul contract that you would have that experience, that you would move into it, and that you would live to witness that great opening of your soul and the world's soul with it. Precious, indeed, wonderful. You feel it in your being still, and it will always be with you. Thank you for that. We send you our love. Um, um, this is super. I just felt guided to say this because they spoke of that, like the personal awakening path. And I just remember, Aston, that you in the last live stream also felt like, you didn't feel comfortable being back in Pakistan. And I think like me being in Denmark, it has felt very much like, oh, this is not the place I belong. And then a lot of the experiences have been going back where it's really revealed to me why it was this particular landscape that I was brought up in, which has a lot to do with fresh air, for instance, which there's a lot of, for better or worse. It's really windy around here. So that's to say that what they were also saying to Carla just now about, the landscape and her living up there in the northwestern territories of Washington at that light, it somehow is meant for her energetic path that she needs to be there to have those experiences. And that's somehow also the case with where you're at, Essen. So that's just kind of moving through me to be said, and I hope that served you somehow. And then I must admit, I Mark, that I don't know what a bifabrication event is. So if you could explain it, I can always ask them, and then they can say whatever. But it often helps me at least if I understand it. So if you could add a few words to it, I'd love that. And Chuck says much love. So much love to you, Chuck. Good to have you here. And yeah, it's so lovely to see you guys. And we have some other questions here. So, friend Mandy asks, My daughter Iris has an affinity for dragons and reptiles. She often asks if I will be a dragon with her in our next incarnation. She has even stated that she wants this life to end so that she can go back to being a dragon. What should I tell her? Can a soul have a lifetime as a dragon? What is a dragon from the perspective of the Quanta? Any messages for Iris that might guide her in channeling her dragon energy in this lifetime? I think that's super cute. Can I just say that? I just think it's super cute. Yeah, what's with this human stuff? Let me go back to being a dragon. That was more awesome. Let's see what they have to answer, Iris. Well, it's not easy having your wings clipped and your fire breath extinguished once you're used to being a big dangerous dragon and then having to get used to being a human girl instead. It's a very different experience. And from our perspective, we think that being a human girl and eventually a grown up at some point is at least as worthwhile as being a dragon. But we are aware that it comes with certain, let's say, senses of limitation that do not go with the dragon territory. What you will find is to answer in the affirmative, then yes, a soul can very much have a lifetime as a dragon. And you will also find that many of you have dragon incarnations, dragon patterns in your lives, either from higher dimensional imprints, extraterrestrial worlds, or even as parts of your earthly karmas. That is, that there are very strong reptilian codes that tend to emerge and adapt themselves to whatever physical environments they can encounter in this universe. So saying that once a planet reaches certain stages of complex biological life, you will often see what you would consider convergent evolution on this planet, where certain, let's call them reptilian patterns of organization of matter emerges. And the dragon pattern is, as they never tire to point out themselves, it's a perfect combination of adaptations to both the liquid, the solid, and the gaseous state. And therefore, you will find that this adaptation to the free-flowing form of energy and holding that in the body is one that matter often moves towards organizing itself in across different planets, atmospheric, and environmental variations. That being said, that is that you will find that Iris has already very much worked with this reptilian pattern. Her soul has completed it. She has actually done what there is to be done with it. And so, as you may know, when you've finished all you can in a certain class, the teacher doesn't let you hang around to be a know-it-all and disrupt the teaching for those who haven't learned yet. They send you to a different place where you can either learn more or you can learn something else. You can start teaching yourself. And of course, she is also a type of dragon teacher then. But what she's learning and what she'll be moving towards teaching is variations of human physicality that are very strong. So you will find that one of the reasons that these dragon templates are very awakened and for a lot of souls are using these templates and variations to drop into human experience is that they're also coming to empower human experience. And for that reason, you will also find this dragon template is often more connected to female physicality at this particular point in human history and development, because the female body has been more suppressed through a very long range of your history. And so this type of expression, empowerment, and reconfiguration of the female form to being one of a type of self-reliant energy conduit is one that many souls come in to explore in a female body in this form. And they often come with a dragon fierceness, a dragon power that they hold and move into. So we'd say that maybe you could gently let Iris know that it's a poor dragon that shies away from a challenge and slinks back into its cave to just sit on his treasures and wait for a challenger or some kind of little thief to slink along and try to steal from it. Rather, a dragon seeks out its foes. It seeks out adventures. It is an active part of this great telling that life really is. And so we are just so happy that Iris has come here to be a dragon in human form rather than going back to just being a dragon in dragon form. She already knows how to do that. So we send her love and we encourage her, though her mother may not be quite as positive around this, that maybe she could even in this lifetime learn to breathe fire again. Who knows? Just watch out not to set fire to the curtains. Much love, dear ones. Cute, cute answers too. Um, and uh, and then yes, I Mark, thank you. The whole notion of dragons is amusing to me. Yeah, it's a super the puzzling one. But thank you so much for explaining this, a splitting timeline, one 3D and one a separate 4D. Um, yes, I've been just wondering how that's playing out. So let's see what they're saying to this bifurcation of events and timelines. Thank you so much for that question. Yes. Well, indeed, it is already happening. You are already experiencing these divisions, and you may notice that it is becoming harder and harder to establish a type of energetic equivalency with things that seem to be of a very dense nature. And you may sense that these quite dense energies seem to have a moribund character to them. So they become more and more closed off. So visions, our friend here has been having around energy much connects to how the 4D is related to boxes or attempts to contain energy, to store it and seal it. rather to work with it as a free-flowing force. And you may sense that this kind of hoarding instinct, it it's leaving people behind in the past, and you will see this quite dramatically, energetically in your literal boxing market. That is, you will see that there is certain deep lessons that are related to what you call currency, but that you often have a hard time to making flow. So all your diviners and sages within the field that you call economics, who are supposed to appease and adjust this currency and make it flow so that it operates, well, they are having trouble not making this currency store itself into boxes. So literally, you are seeing how the value that's supposed to accumulate and work in human society moves into these mausoleums of property, your houses that then have greatly inflated value that doesn't correspond to, well, the time it would actually take a human being to build said house from raw materials, for instance. So these energies you will find will actually be a very, very deliberate, very tangible reconstruction where you will see a lot of people getting caught up into very dense, very tight energy patterns. And then you'll actually stop seeing that because your own reality will begin to bend in a way where that becomes very hard for you to perceive and pick up on, even though it is happening on, let's say, simultaneous Earth in the 3D space. Normally, it's happening in your city or somewhere, but it's not a part of your experience. And that is a lot of these separations. And then at some point, you will find that the people who are seeing the UFOs, receiving the signals, having the energy move through them, living lives that are somehow emotionally at a new stage, and also beginning to be both biologically and physically at a new stage, technologically at a new stage, that they begin to live almost in a different reality than these people who are stuck in what you may think of as the 3D. And the 3D will begin to become in ways that will seem almost puzzling to you, uh, sterile. So what you're seeing, for instance, in receding birth rates is not partially just a result of human beings having changed their ways of life, but also the fact that you find that some modes and ways of life no longer give off offspring. And so this will be a way that human population collective regulates itself energetically without it necessarily coming to some of the, let's say, more darker totalitarian visions that you have also had about the future in some ways. So we do see this split taking place and intensifying. And we thank you very much for being able to clarify that. So we send you our love, and to all human beings, our love and blessings. Um, and uh, And then Chuck asked about a UFO. I believe I saw a black UFO recently in Minnesota, United States. And can you tell me what I need to know about it? This particular UFO was operated by the Pleiadian High Command, these entities, and we're having a bit of a hard time getting a read on it, or our friend is having a bit of a hard time getting a read on it. And what it is connected to is that he's actually mistaken or reading their energies because what it is connected to, it's connected to these blue high beings, and it's because some of these blue vibrations can be slightly similar, and he's reading it off your energy field. So it's actually connected to these Syrian blue high beings. You may sense that you have already been establishing communications with, and they are inviting you into a technological communion. And that's what they're saying. That is what it has to do with is your ability to somehow also to attune to certain subtleties and frequencies, vibrations, ways of putting together rhythm, music, breath to stir frequencies within people. So you may sense that this is a sign, it's a stirring, it is a type of super synchronicity. And that's a way of thinking about the UFO, that it represents a meeting of the highest order where the soul becomes visible to the avatar, the physical being. And that's what's happening to you because you're stepping into the mastery that you came here to achieve. And then you will, with this type of unlocking or opening up the gate that this represented and that they showed you, you will step in to this vibrational mastery yourself and emit it. They send you their love, and we send you ours as well. Blessings to you, dear Chuck, and to all human beings, our love. Yes, like can I just point out like there's really some strong stuff going on for all of us all across the planet. I think it's most comforting to know that it's going around right. Whatever I've caught, it seems to be infectious. So who knew? Who knows who got it first and who got in the rest of us, right? Um, let's take a question from Mandy here, um, who asks, I once had a spontaneous experience in the void where I found myself completely stripped of all awareness of anything other than being. Once the shock settled, I remained in this state and began seeing spherical strobing bubbles with rainbow lights. Where was I? Was it my will as an instrument of divine thought that manifested these lights from the void space, or was I being shown another realm? Why did it feel like the unconditional love we are told we come from? Thank you both for that very beautiful description and yeah, sharing that experience. Wonderful question. I'll just share that what I call the soap bubble space is the 11th dimension. It's up here where these sort of beautiful harmonic complete composites of universes seem to permeate up from the void and come into being. And it's an astounding space. So thank you so much for going there and bringing that back. Let's see what they say. There's few who go to the void without anchoring themselves firmly in the body, often do not come back. It was a miraculous feat you performed. That is, you have undergone so many of these journeys while your body itself was unsure of whether or not it could settle into the Earth realm reality grid. So, what you are describing approaches what human beings have come to understand as NDEs or near death experiences. But near death experiences often begin in the slightly closer, whispering, shadowy world of ghosts that surround you, not this high sphere of the divine unmanifest. You went to the core of source itself. It is this space that we also come from, and you were in the center of the 12. This is the void, and around it we sit, holding from its emptiness the shape of all things within our being. And we lent you our power, or you yourself, you drew it out in this space. You decided to come back, and not having a physical reality to drop back into at this point. You had to recreate the entire experience of your universe at large. And so this is a part of why you may felt that you had to leave behind or sacrifice a small part of yourself in the underworld, in the land of the dead, because you came into the land of the dead from a radically other, dare we say, darker timeline, where you had allowed yourself to absorb many negative energies from many other human beings, acting as the martyr, the scapegoat, the person to absorb these dark energies to purify them from humanity. And there, having died from this experience, as so many of you bright beings have who listen to this, have in different lifetimes done, where you dragged yourself into the underworld. But this time, you recreated the whole thing, and you recreated it so that you would shed this darkness and have light around you. And so, in this new life, this new reality, this new lifetime that you live, you are married, you have children, you are loved and you love, you are guided and connected, and you are redeemed as these energies fall away. This was a part of your magic. You did this on your own. This, indeed, was the priestess allowing life to come to pass in the highest possible way. We thank you, we bless you, we love you, and we admire what you did. Wow, that was some very powerful visions. So Most interesting. Most interesting. Um, Joachim, no, sorry. Joachim asks, do you have a tip how to change timelines? The best way you can do this at the moment is to switch your front and your back side. You can also begin to switch your right and your left side. That is, every time you do something slightly different, you are asking reality to grow in awareness and to become more unpredictable in its responses to your intentions. That is the reason that everyday reality for human beings, most of them at least, look similar from day to day, is that they keep recreating it from similar patterns. And this energy and recreation might be so powerful that it's also a collective spell. So if you keep getting up to show up for work at the same time every day, and everybody else also does that and expect you to be there, then even though the energies of the day are completely and totally wavy and different from this higher dimensional perspective, to a hunter-gatherer, the idea that, well, a set Friday, no matter the Friday at this set appointed hour, we will begin to chase the deer, and that will be how it be. That is and very much an office way of thinking, or a farmer way of thinking, even. And even farmers have to adapt to the circumstances of the weather. But just understand that these flows of energy, they're always there. And the more chaotic you get with yourself, the more you can allow timelines to align themselves in unexpected ways. And what first happens, of course, is that then you'll see the established pattern begin to implode. So this would be if we take this everyday normal person living through a series of fairly unconscious routine events. Well, you will experience how then all of a sudden, if they do this, then they can't find their car keys, or they're late for work, their appointments are missing, they forget their lunch, things like this that will seem upsetting. But as you begin to trigger it and drop down, you begin to open the magic, because then maybe you discover a place to eat for lunch where you wouldn't have gone otherwise. And that turns out to be a very helpful, good experience for you. Or maybe you are right on time to meet somebody outside of the office building, even though you are running late. These things are often then ways that you change timelines. So you can always just go the approach of the chaotic way, keep either slightly altering what you're already doing by doing it another way, or keep doing something or do something else entirely, and watch how things reroute and realign themselves. So have fun surfing the timelines, dear Jochen and dear everybody. Our love to you. Oh, and there was a bunch of hearts in my side of I could see all of a sudden coming out, and then Spasi is with us. So that's thank you. Bless your beautiful heart and sharing the love and everything. Thank you so much, Spasi. Um, And yes, and she asks also uh I think I'll go back to this. Like it's just that there's questions about 144, but we'll do Essence question up here where he asks, is schizophrenia a form of clairvoyance or shamanic initiation? I hear voices and most of them are judgmental. Yes. Well, we can answer yes to all of your questions. Schizophrenia is a form of shamanic initiation, and we would like you to stress this perspective because schizophrenia can often seem as the failed initiation. And so in its harshest expressions, which you are nowhere close to, such as catatonic insanity, for instance, or these types of revelries, you will find that this is a type of dying off of the mind that senses you, evaluates experience, so that the schizophrenic impulses are still going on. But what is going on in your case, we'd actually more characterize as misaligned creative power. That's also a type of shamanic initiation that's happening. But the thing is that your ability to think about things, to analyze things, to perceive things have grown so incrementally that you are amplifying everything that moves along in your mind. And so your mental structures still hold a lot of these judgmental patterns. And they do because these judgmental patterns have been keeping you safe. So there's is essentially a way to preempt the judgment that you would otherwise be met with from your immediate family, your society at large, and also your internalized self-criticizing structure. But what they're doing is that they are becoming so amplified that they might possibly move into absurdity. So the images that seem to come up here and that are being moved into the vision of our friend are some of those of the place of the playwright of Samuel Beckett, such as Waiting for Godot or Endgame, where you may find, and you can even probably find these plays and watch them if you want, that many of these very dramatic notions, divine terrors that haunt a person, are simply just blank voices being spoken in the dark looking for relevance. Because what happens is when these voices will fall off, there will be only the void that you're experiencing. And right now, the terror is that the voices are keeping you together. And what you will discover is that there is content in the void. There is a template of you that is deeper than that. So, yes, you are moving through initiation. You are not going crazy. And you are not schizophrenic, though we are aware that for your medical sciences at the moment who are not necessarily energetically sensitive, then it requires a healer who happens to be a psychiatrist to also have a sense of discerning where crises might actually be running a developmental course and where they might be destructive. And yours is developmental. So know that these voices have different registers, and the voice of the divine judges, the seals of the angels, are also the voices that call the elect to connect to their light and to what is dead to be resurrected again on this final day of judgment. Then everything shall collapse into one, and you shall be there to witness it in love. Wow, love to see you alive. You too. Yes, it's good to be. It's good to be alive. At least it looks that way from this part of the veil. Um, and Magneto asks, how can I get my gyroscopic rig working better, reading weight better? Let's see what they say. So what we sense is that you might want to slightly increase the space between the ball bearings or so that they aren't as tightly calibrated and so the parts become slightly more movable than they already are. So again, allowing for a greater type of adjustability or slightly higher rates of gyration will actually allow it to calibrate better to its sensor. And we feel our friend here senses that his that he senses that this register of English is not one that he knows very well, technical things, but we assure him that we feel that the configuration that you are looking for is evident for you, and it has to do just with a little bit of more fragility allowed for in the system, so energy can flow more freely through it. And we thank you for this exciting, creative, and helpful work that you dedicate yourself to with love. Yes, uh, uh, and yes, and Magneto says thank you and much love. Thank you too. And you know I've seen some of the stuff you do over at the Instagram, and it looks very fascinating. And I have like I don't have any qualifications to understand what it is, but it really is mesmerizing, and I just think it's always so cool to be you reminded that there are lots of people out there on the planet who like where we have like our small circles and are led by our intuition to experiment with fascinating stuff. So thank you so much for doing and sharing that too. And then I'll ask I'll tend to Swasi's question here. Um and okay, there are two ones. I will get all the questions, but I'll ask this one. Um what is the significance of seeing swastika and number 144 everywhere? And for instance, I then discovered when I turned on the bike again after coming home from the magic bike ride that it was set at 1444 kilometers exactly. So So that's fascinating that it does turn up. And there is an old video with it, Swasi, but let's see what the Quanta they say here. Well, you will notice that the number 144 is a greatly expansive number, and it has to do with these geometric, mathematical, holographic, numerological letters of threes and fours. And in this way, once you begin to set the foreign rotation and multiply it, it will around 12 then begin to generate this type of rotational surplus. So when 3 times 4 becomes 12, you move into an area of energy that becomes free flowing in its exponential capacity. And many of these things are still to some degree hidden to humanity. But that's what you're intuiting both with the swastika, which is actually a symbol of the way that the universe generates surplus energy. And of course, in your sustainable energy technologies, you're coming to the understanding that these rotations, these gyrations, they can actually be brought into a circuitry that then lets off surplus current and allows you to utilize that as energy. And so the wheels keep spinning and moving and rotating on. And this is the sacred swastika because this is also the energy factory that exists within the human heart. And so you have in your 4D vision of man seen him as Vitruvian man of this harmony of divine proportions stretched out with four limbs. But once he begins to rotate and becomes energized, he becomes a cartwheel and he becomes, so to say, so to speak, soft, a rolling pattern of swirling energy. And that has to do with the numerology of 144, which is a squaring of the proportion of 12. And the proportion of 12 is the fundamental energy pattern that the entire human structure is built around. And then 7 is the visible human energy pattern that it's built around. And you will simply find that when you're connecting to this, it's a sign that you're connecting to a greater free flow of energy within yourself, what you also call awakening, vibration, moving into eternal life. Take your pick and model of metaphor, but it is what you're experiencing. And that's what you're experiencing, Swasi, and that's what all of you are experiencing at the moment, that energy is becoming so abundant in your experience that it's beginning to unlock, move, and stir things and turn them into new moving patterns. And so you will find that even when the pattern of judging everything, including yourself, becomes so accelerated, it can actually collapse into a type of super ability to evaluate. And so many of you are seeing how the 4D dysfunction collapses into 5D harmony. These are the mystical patterns with which this develops and takes place. Our love to you for that question and for being on the swirling path of the swastika. Um, and Mandy uh, has a question here. I struggle to understand the concepts of soul and Merkaba. Are they the same thing? Can you please help us to further understand these terms and their relations to the sea of consciousness in which we exist and transit? Um, yes. Yes, this is a very helpful question because we have been playing around with some of these Trinitarian visions in our answers today. And this is a helpful way of understanding it. It's also a quite true, quite specific, almost literal, we would say, way of experiencing how that is, that the soul is the universal field that permeates all of your experience. So that is Quanta, that's Holy Ghost, that's the interconnected field. And the Merkaba is the funneling of this into individual personal experience. So if you think of the soul as the light source and the Merkaba as the prism, then they together create the avatar, the human experience, the lower fractals of human experience below them. So you could think of the soul as the surrounding layer, and then the Merkaba within this, and then this as a prismatic lens, and crystallizes everything. And then these fields are embedded again within this greater, wider field of a hyperdimensional gravitation. So a way where everything influences everything else and gives it its definition and position in the multiverse. Because our dear friend Mandy's final question is what dark matter is. And we will say that this is the unilluminated parts of the universal soul. So that's to say that, of course, there are parts of dark matter experience where you are a part of their dark matter. So they're existing on sensory frequencies that are experiencing itself, and where your wider energy field, that massive, surrounding, unconscious, unseen, unregistered body that still exerts gravitational influence on that register of reality, that influences their soul, their light, their actual potential of experience and creation. And that's the same. So you could think of dark matter as the dark soul. We don't mean to imply anything moral about this, but to understand that it's murky, it's unknown, but it exerts an influence. And it is in this way that the lake that constitutes your personal soul environment is a part of a great wide expanse of different lakelands that fit together on a great continental mass that lies on a great planet that sits in a great, 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 great space with lots of stuff in it that you don't necessarily register, but that's having an influence anyway. In this field, there are many emotional registers that do not resonate with the human, but there are also those who do. And one is the register of love, our love. Uh, yes, so if you have any, I think I'll take the questions that are here, guys, and then wrap up. So if you have um, Yes, then please feel free to shoot them. And then Swasi asks, where do our desires come from, and why is it so difficult to abandon them, especially in relationships? Are they meant to be our soul resonance? Love. Yes. Well, if you think again of this type of void or darkness that you exist in, and then think of the fact that there is something that has to drive this creation, the Merkaba, to focus. So we were talking about the light source and the Merkaba, but we weren't actually explaining why it then goes through the trouble of it creating the lower fractals. And we could say it does so it can recreate the whole through the small by funneling everything into a smaller fractal and then allowing that fractal to create everything to reflect it all. And that is, of course, if you were to see it, it also sounds beautiful. It is really beautiful. The universe enjoys experiencing itself. But the kind of lighter motivation that it puts forward, the inkling that it has to create itself, is that type of light of desire. And so many of you have experienced, if you step into the spiritual path and looked into this, that that light has become of a higher guiding frequency. So once it might have been, oh, people will admire me if I do this, or maybe it will be easier for me to get somebody to hold hands and kiss me or something. Or maybe I'll get more money if I do this. Like these are all classic desires that might drive your manifestation and then bring it into a higher level of order. But so many of you have experienced then that you begin to identify with, let's say, higher lights. And these are actually the higher frequency lights also of the chakras. So understanding that there is then perhaps a motivation that grows in you also naturally as you become older, where you don't think, I'll do this thing so my friends are impressed with me, but I'll do this thing so I can feel good about who I am as a person. Or I'll do this thing so somebody else can feel like life is worth living. And that is often then also a type of circuitry of higher order where one supports the other. It's not that one is selfish and one is not. It's actually that it's a type of circuitry of love or of selfishness. And these are the way that desires grow into impulses, into inspirations, and then into, we could say, love itself, because indeed love and desire are two manifestations of the same thing, but they appear different when the desires are still ones that lead you into limitation or into grappling. And the thing there is, the secret is often to acknowledge it. So that's the idea that if you keep beating yourself up about wanting to eat sugary foods, then it becomes a neurosis that you're maintaining and feeding. Whereas if you allow yourself to eat enough sugary foods in an instant, to have the full experience of how this is actually also can feel very negative if you follow it to its logical conclusion. There you'll find that often then these, by being totally seen for what it is, the desire wraps itself up as a karma and can transform into a higher expression. And that's a lot of what is the wisdom, the karma of relationships. Also, that so many of you have learned after, let's say, romantic, free encounters between human beings, where you weren't being put there by your family or your society or something. You got into it for emotional reasons. That's teaching you so much about human emotion, both in yourself and in relation to others. And that's a part of a great maturation of humankind at large. So know that when you feel you are falling short in your private relationship, you are doing more than adequately in the eyes of the divine. And with that, we extend our love to you, to your loved ones, and to all human beings. And then I always feel the need to add, because it's, of course, it's one of the most universal thing everybody's struggling with. Relationships are hard, and they are hard no matter where you talk with people on the planet. It's just difficult for us to get along with each other always. So I'll just add that if anybody's beating themselves up about not being the perfect partner or whatever, then it's I think we all struggle with being our best self sometimes. Um, and it seems yes, you're talking about dragons and sharing beautiful energies, and Magneto is encouraged to share his links, and I think it is Magneto on Instagram. You can follow him there, and thank you for being so loving and sharing the energies. Um, and then Swasi says she feels free flowing, but my boss doesn't like it. You know, your boss's job is, of course, to keep you in a box. So, like, I think it's I've had both good and bad bosses, and of course we live in a fairly egalitarian culture over here, so they're usually easy to get along with. But people who are in that position are usually people who like to keep others in line, and that's why they're good at being bosses. So just if you're not kind of clicking with your like your superior's rigid ways, I think like that's a natural response that spirit has in the face of authority. And I'll just say that. And then, yeah, thanks for all the love, Chuck. Thanks, Swasi. Thanks, Austin. Thanks, Imark. Thanks, and he's off to eat some sugary things. He says, that's so awesome. I'll get them to do a toning and a blessing here, guys. And yeah, love to you. Light sources within light sources, stars within stars, a central sun within you as your central point. Around that, spheres of ever increasing brightness rotating around the center, becoming alive, forceful, moving through your senses, your visionary being, your body, your awareness, your manifestation, your creation, life, light, love, filling everything, fulfilling everything, letting it flow. This love is you. You were always it. It was always you. Here you are in eternity, creating yourself moment to moment. Blessed you are, more powerful than you imagine, loved by the divine, emitting divine love in all things you do, in gratitude, in love. We, the 12D Quanta, the Holy Ghost, the spirit of everything. We take part. Farewell. So much love to you guys. Thank you so much. It's always a joy to connect to you. There'll be a live stream next month, I'm sure, and I'll look forward to that. So I'm sending you all the best, and hope you'll enjoy a lovely evening and the month of May out there. Much love, guys.